got a mountain of info here on arthritis. Sounds like someone wants the full download, and frankly, who wants to get bogged down in all the medical jargon? Not me.
And you'd be surprised, it's not just about creaky bones and stuff. It's way more interesting than people think, and more complicated, too.
Right. This NHS article I was looking at even said that kids can get arthritis. Kids. That's not exactly the first thing that comes to mind when I hear the word arthritis.
Yeah, it's a common misconception. Arthritis isn't just one thing. It's an umbrella term. It covers over 100 different conditions.
100? Wow.
Yeah, over 100 different conditions that can affect the joints. And while we tend to associate it with, getting older, it really can affect anyone.
That is wild. Okay, so out of these hundreds of different conditions, this article focuses on two big ones: osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Seem to be the most common troublemakers. So what actually causes these two?
Well, you can think of it this way. Imagine your joints are like, those really nice drawers?
Okay, yeah.
That glide really smoothly.
Yeah.
They move so effortlessly because of the smooth surfaces. Now with osteoarthritis, that smooth surface, the cartilage, it wears down over time. It's like someone took sandpaper to those drawer tracks,
Oh, I see what you mean.
And it makes movement difficult. Painful.
Okay, so now I'm picturing those old wooden drawers that get stuck and they make that horrible screeching noise.
Exactly. And it often affects those weight-bearing joints the most, your knees and your hips.
Right.
Because they just endure more stress over the years. Think about all the things we take for granted: walking, climbing stairs, even just standing for a long time.
Yeah.
Those can become really challenging with osteoarthritis.
It suddenly doesn't seem like just a minor ache anymore. Yeah. That's for sure. So what about rheumatoid arthritis? That one always seemed a little more mysterious to me.
Yeah, it is. Rheumatoid arthritis is different. It's like your immune system, which is supposed to protect you, right?
Right.
Goes a little haywire. It's like it mistakes the lining of your joints as a threat, and it starts attacking it.
Oh, wow.
And that causes inflammation.
So it's like your body is waging war on itself.
In a way, yeah. You get pain, stiffness, and over time, it can even damage the joint itself.
That's really scary. And this inflammation, it's not just limited to the joints, is it? I feel like I was reading something about that.
That's right. What's really interesting about rheumatoid arthritis is that it can affect other parts of the body, too. We're talking about, your eyes, your lungs, even your heart.
Oh, wow.
So it just shows how interconnected everything is and how a problem in one area can really have these ripple effects elsewhere.
Okay, now I'm really starting to understand why getting a proper diagnosis is important. But with so many types of arthritis, how do doctors even begin to figure out what's going on? So you start feeling some mysterious joint pain, stiffness, those kinds of things. Seems easy to just brush off, but it sounds like getting a diagnosis, like actually figuring out what's going on, that's really important.
Absolutely. And it usually starts with, just having a conversation with your doctor. They'll want to hear all about your symptoms, how long you've been experiencing them, if anything specific seems to trigger them.
It's like detective work, but for your health.
Exactly. Like, is the pain worse in the morning or after you've been active? Is it just one joint that's bothering you, or is it, a bunch of them? Stuff like that.
Right.
And then they'll probably want to do a physical exam just to check for, things like swelling, tenderness, how well you can move the joint.
I imagine they might recommend some tests too, like blood work, maybe x-rays.
Yeah, exactly. Blood tests can be super helpful. They can look for markers of inflammation in your blood, which can be a sign of rheumatoid arthritis. And imaging tests like an x-ray can actually show if there's any damage to the joint, or changes in the bone structure, which can be really helpful in diagnosing osteoarthritis.
So it seems like early diagnosis is pretty key here. Is that just about getting ahead of the pain, or are there other benefits to, figuring out what's going on sooner rather than later?
It's about way more than just managing pain. I mean, obviously that's important.
Right.
But early diagnosis, it means that you can make lifestyle changes sooner, right?
Right.
Which can potentially slow down how quickly certain types of arthritis progress.
Yeah.
And in the case of something like rheumatoid arthritis, if you start treatment early, it can really help minimize the damage to the joints and, those other organs that we talked about.
So early intervention is key. Speaking of treatment, is there a cure-all for arthritis? Or are we talking about managing it long-term?
I wish I had a magic wand I could wave, but unfortunately, with most types of arthritis, what we're really talking about is managing it effectively rather than curing it completely.
Okay, so no magic wand.
Not yet, at least. But, and this is the good news, there are tons of ways to manage it, to really keep it under control and still live a really full and active life.
That is reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
So what kind of management strategies are we talking about here? I know this NHS article mentions things like physiotherapy. Is that like, those intense workout montages you see in the movies?
Well, maybe not quite as dramatic as that, but physiotherapy is definitely a cornerstone of managing arthritis.
Yeah.
It's all about strengthening those muscles that surround the joint, improving your flexibility and reducing pain. Think targeted exercises, stretches, things like that.
Okay, so less about transforming into a weightlifting champion and more about just like giving your body the tools to move better and hurt less.
Exactly. They're like movement coaches for your joints.
I like that.
They can teach you exercises that are tailored to, your specific needs, help you regain any mobility that you've lost.
Okay.
And it's not just about those formal sessions you do, at the clinic or whatever. There are a lot of things that you can do on your own at home.
So what are some things that people can do in their day-to-day lives to kind of manage this, to manage their arthritis?
Well, with osteoarthritis, a lot of it comes down to reducing the stress on those weight-bearing joints.
Okay.
Maintaining a healthy weight can make a world of difference.
It's amazing how much our weight actually impacts our joints. Like,
Yeah.
Carrying around an extra backpack all the time. No wonder your knees and your hips are like, hey, what are you doing?
Right, exactly. And beyond weight, assistive devices can be really helpful too. And I don't mean, like big, clunky things.
Right.
We're talking about like even just using a cane if you've got hip or knee pain.
Okay.
That can help take some of the pressure off. Or, those jar openers you see, they can be lifesavers if you've got arthritis in your hands. Little things like that.
It's all about working smarter, not harder, right?
Exactly.
And speaking of working smarter, it seems like pacing yourself would be important too. You can't just push through the pain, can you?
Definitely not. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to just power through it. They think, oh, it'll go away eventually if I just ignore it.
Yeah.
But in reality, you're just putting more stress on those joints.
Right.
And that can actually make the damage worse.
So it's important to listen to your body.
It really is. Respect your limits.
Yeah, that's where the self-care comes in, right? Like taking breaks when you need to, maybe using heat or cold therapy.
Exactly. Don't underestimate like a nice warm bath or a cold compress. Those can be amazing for just soothing your joints. You mentioned self-care, and that actually reminds me of another really important part of living with arthritis that this article talks about. It's not just physical, it's emotional too. It can be a really tough journey.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's easy to focus on the physical pain, but chronic pain, it can take a toll on your mental well-being too.
Absolutely. And people with arthritis, they often experience, frustration, anxiety, sometimes even depression, especially if their arthritis is making it hard to do the things they love,
Absolutely. It's got to be so frustrating. So how can people support themselves emotionally while they're dealing with, the physical aspects of arthritis? I know you mentioned some organizations earlier.
Yeah, so organizations like the one mentioned in this article, Versus Arthritis, they have these incredible resources. They've got support groups.
Okay.
So you can connect with other people who really get it, They even have a helpline
That's amazing.
for those times when you just need to talk to somebody.
Right.
It's a good reminder that you don't have to go through this alone, There are people who understand.
It's a whole community.
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah.
So are there other things people can do kind of in their day-to-day lives to help manage that emotional impact as well?
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes it's the small things that can make a big difference.
Okay.
Like prioritizing the activities that you enjoy, even if you have to adapt them a bit. That can be huge for your mood.
So like if you love gardening, maybe look into those raised garden beds so you don't have to bend over as much.
Exactly. Or if you're a big reader, audiobooks, e-readers, they can make it easier on your hands. It's about adapting, Thriving, not just surviving.
I love that. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From diagnosis to, different management techniques. And it sounds like there's not one right answer. There's not one magic solution when it comes to dealing with arthritis. What would you say is the most important thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this? It really drives home the point that knowledge is power, especially with something like arthritis. And who knows, maybe there's a cure right around the corner.
Well, there's so much incredible research going on right now. Scientists are looking at everything from personalized medicine.
Oh, wow. So like treatments that are tailored to your specific genes.
Exactly. To stem cell therapies that could potentially regenerate that damaged cartilage.
Wow. It seems like this whole field is just moving so quickly. What a time to be, learning about all this stuff.
Yeah.
So for our listeners who've been hanging on our every word, what would you say is like the final takeaway? What's the most empowering message that you want to leave them with today?
You know, I think the most important thing to remember is, yeah, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. But when you understand your specific situation, you're empowered, right? You can
Hmm.
take control. Whether it's osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, that knowledge allows you to make really informed decisions about your health and advocate for yourself.
Yes, love that. Advocate for yourself. I think so often we just kind of accept things as they are, but especially with a condition like this, knowledge really is power.
It really is. Don't be afraid to ask your doctor questions. Explore all the options. See what's out there. Connect with those support networks. It's a journey you don't have to take alone. There are people out there who get it and want to help you live your best life, even with arthritis.
Absolutely. Well, you've definitely given us a lot to think about today. It's amazing, something that seems so common. It's actually so much more complex and fascinating than I think we realize.
I completely agree. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today.
And there you have it, your crash course in arthritis,
Yeah.
but not like your grandpa's arthritis.
Yeah.
This is the modern take. We'll be back next time with another deep dive, but until then, stay curious.